So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Neighborhood Passions Affinity Network, presented by Google Fiber and Neighbor to Neighbor. My name is Jim Hawk, and I'm the Executive Director here at Neighbor to Neighbor and your host this evening. Tonight, we're focusing on one of the 8 key neighborhood passions, effective neighborhood organizing. And our topic for this evening is communicating through Facebook and Nextdoor. And as I said just a little earlier, I am not schooled in these programs. I've certainly taken many workshops, but I worked with both of these programs from the very beginning and have been using them over the years and find them to be a good tool that we should all be using, but not the only tool that we should be using. So I'm hoping that tonight we can start out with a little bit of a conversation with the folks that are here to find out. I'd love to find out what your experience has been with these programs before we start, and so I can get a sense of why you're here. What was interesting about this topic to you? Does anybody want to talk to me about that?
Well, the reason why I joined tonight because of recent rapid developments concerning the safety of Facebook and whether it played a role either unwittingly or perhaps wittingly in recent political upheavals in the United States, and whether this could be a safe tool to communicate one's feelings or thoughts without causing disruptions in our society. And here recently, Facebook says it's going to change its name from Facebook to Meta, M-E-T-A. I don't know whether that will improve safety in the use of this phenomenon or not, or what algorithms or other protections will be provided. I understand people don't want to be censored, but at the same time, there has to be some protection. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you say anything and everything you want. But there's some people who seem to behave that way and use Facebook to bully and insult and try to make fun of people and rouse people up to anger. And I don't see where that's helpful to improving society. So I'm just an observer of Facebook. I don't have any profile on it. And given recent events, I don't go to Facebook often to see what's going on with other people or keep up with news events because I don't know whether they're true or whether someone's trying to instigate something or if they hurting people is some kind of sport to indulge in. So I'm kind of turned off on Facebook right now, and I was wondering what you were going to have to say about that, or the alternative means of communication that people can resort to that's safe for everyone involved.
Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate that. We'll certainly touch on the safety issue this evening. Anita, Mary, what brings you here tonight?
This is Anita. I use both Facebook and Nextdoor for meeting announcements. And on Nextdoor, you get an opportunity for people to sign in and say, you know, I just moved to the neighborhood, or I've been on this street for 3 weeks now. And so it gives me an opportunity to send that person a message, giving them my email. And I tell people, if you want to start receiving our newsletters, be on the email newsletter, to send me your email address. And you get an opportunity to send out free postcards from Nextdoor when new neighbors move in. Been having a problem with if somebody moves out and a new neighbor moves in, then Nextdoor will sometimes tell you that that person's already received a postcard or that's not somebody new. Um, and Facebook, it just gives you a chance to reach. You can post it on the East Nashville Facebook page, and that reaches, all the people on the East Nashville Facebook page. In addition to Greenwood has a Facebook page that's not very well maintained, due to I'm not an expert at it, but I can at least post our meeting notices.
And Mary, do you want to chime in? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh, yes, I can. I was just waiting my turn.
Okay.
I guess what drew me to it is very interested in activities in my neighborhood and networking that I I want to do our community garden, and I want to have.
Oop, we lost you. Are you still there? Well, hopefully when Mary comes back.
Huh?
Okay, we lost you there for a minute. We heard you
Okay.
want to do your community garden and then everything else was gone.
Oh, okay. How about now? Am
Yes,
I back?
you're fine. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to organize or help, get activities going in my neighborhood, such as the garden, the community garden, and then potluck dinners. I have got so many neighbors from around the world, and I really would like them. I want to be neighborly with them. I want to have a real close neighborhood around here, and also give the women from these other cultures the ability to share. I don't even know how this sounds. I hope it doesn't sound bad, but the men, they kind of go out and they're working and they're out in there, and I would really like the female company from around the world. I'd really like to get to know these people. And the social media is the only way that I really have to connect with them. And I would like to do a better job with outreach and inclusion of my neighbors.
Mary, that's fascinating. Now, are you already finding that there are women from other cultures who are on? Is it a neighborhood Facebook page, or are you just connecting with them one-on-one?
Oh no, our neighborhood Facebook page.
Okay, Thomas, I'll get to you in a minute. and are many joining the neighborhood page?
No.
Yeah.
No, not as many as I would like to see. I see them in my store, but that's it. We don't. Well, COVID really stopped us from all gathering. So
yeah.
I'm just hoping we can get back to that connection in person.
All right. Well, I'll share a few things, and then let's open it up for a broader discussion, because I think you all have raised some really excellent points. I think the starting point for me is that Facebook and Nextdoor are each tools, but they're just part of many tools that you have in your toolbox for bringing neighbors together. And one thing that I always have got to remind people and remember myself is that when Facebook and even Nextdoor, but Facebook in particular, started, when I would post something to my page, or I would post something to our neighborhood group page, more people would see it then than see it today. The algorithms that are set up for Facebook in particular are such that a very small percentage of people who like your page or who follow your group or a members group actually have the opportunity to see those posts. And unless they're checking the page out, and unless you're paying for distribution, a very small percentage of people are actually doing that. And so when I think about communicating with my neighbors, I really have to come up with a communications plan. And for me, there are 4 or 5 things that I think are just central to any plan. And this is part of a series of on communicating with neighbors. So if you've heard some of this before, it's because it's worth repeating and is part of this series. Somehow, some way, a neighborhood newsletter that gets out 2 or 3 times a year is really critical. And that means that as we're meeting people at neighborhood meetings, or if we're visiting people out there, trying to get people to sign up, we need to get those, we need to make sure that we're collecting important information from them. Now, personally, I would never mail a newsletter in my neighborhood. Today, the cost of postage, it's cost prohibitive. I would opt for delivering those newsletters out, not putting them in mailboxes, but attaching them to doors or attaching them to fences. To me, that is one other tool that we need to use. The other tool that is I think more important today is that of the email. While email is not necessarily the preferred tool of the younger folks, it is the preferred tool of most others. And even older adults who refuse to get on or cannot get on Facebook or Nextdoor, at least nowadays have the basic understanding of email and receive emails. And those are free. You don't have to pay 1 dime for those emails to go out. And the 100% of those emails are going to get to the correct email address. So if you have a bad email address, it's not going to get there. But if you have a good email address, it's going to get to those people. And so the likelihood of them being read and seen by people are far more frequent. And one of the things that I'd like to say about that is, if I have an event coming up in 6 weeks, I want to make sure that 6 weeks out, I'm sending out weekly emails about the event. Not the same one, but slightly different. And then when we come to the final week before, I'm going to try to send one out 7 days out, 3 days out, 1 day out, and then the day of the event. That sounds like a lot of emails, but when we understand information overload today and what's happening in our culture and how tired people are, the chances of them actually reading and understanding and connecting about that event is really, really important. Then I use Facebook and Nextdoor to supplement that even more. It's not enough to send out one post anymore. We have got to figure out ways when we're coming up on an event or an activity to really saturate and oversaturate our Facebook page or our Nextdoor page. First of all, the more you get rewarded for the more posts that you put in, because you're becoming a key quote key influencer by doing all those posts. And so that raises your visibility. It also raises you to a higher level that ensures that more and more of your posts are actually getting through to people. Facebook likes people who post a lot. And so the more that you can post, the better it is for you. And one of the nice things about Facebook is you can schedule those posts. So if you're doing a Facebook page like we do, I can go in 6 weeks out and start scheduling all the posts that I need to do for a given period. And so that's really important. The other thing that we do here for our events and activities, we no longer, and Nita, you're doing this, and I really want to celebrate that. We no longer just post into our Facebook page. The readership on our Facebook page is horrible. We're just not getting enough people, and I feel like we're about the size of a neighborhood, right? As far as our membership goes, and the following goes. But we're now posting on a weekly basis into about 90 different Facebook groups. And you know, when it's a topic that is of interest to people, we're getting out 40, 30, 40, 50 people registering for our events. And that tells you how much of a challenge it is to make contact with people when, I think that we calculated that when all those 90 pages combined, I think the subscribers, the followers is around 190,000 people. And we're not getting through to all those people, but that high level is giving us the accessibility. And so being able to post into an East Nashville page, a lot of council districts will have a Facebook page. If you're able to post into that, certainly post into that. Wherever you can post, try to do that. The other thing to try to do, that we try to do here is when someone likes our page or follows us or joins our Facebook group, as an administrator, I try really hard to friend them individually. And then when we're having events or meetings, even if they're online events and meetings, I can personally invite them through the events page. I can add them and send out the invitation directly to them. And I'm not above messaging people and sending out a message that just says, would love to see you. I think all of these things really are things that have to be done in order to be successful. And what always concerns me most when I'm saying this stuff is the one neighborhood leader who seems to be doing all the work. It feels like it's just one more job to be done. And so I somehow we've got to work with our neighbors to help them understand that we all need to work together to make this happen. If you're a neighborhood chair, you don't need to be spending most of your time on Facebook and Nextdoor. Someone from your neighborhood association or organization needs to be doing that, but it doesn't need to be you unless you really love doing it. If you love doing it, that's fantastic. But if you don't, that's definitely not you. And this is also going to be a younger demographic that's using these programs. And so that's one of the benefits of doing this. You're not getting the young people, you're getting the younger, older people, the young adults, right? And so that's a good group to go after. But I'll also just say real quick, if you're posting things in Facebook and inviting people to things that are appealing only to the older adult community, and you're posting them into your Facebook page and thinking that that's going to get the younger folks out, we're mistaken, right? You can't just post in there something that only appeals to older adults. You're going to have to figure out what events, what activities really appeal to the younger crowd, and then be posting those into the Facebook page. And I think that is something that we really forget, or we make this assumption that, and some of us are real neighborhood advocates, and that means that we like neighborhood meetings. But I will tell you that a majority of the people who are going to be reading your Facebook post don't like to go to other meetings. And so you need to find exciting things, interesting things that appeal to people, that will bring them out. Mary talked about the community garden, right? That is a great activity that probably will not appeal to neighborhood advocates, people who like to go to meetings, but it will bring out another segment that is a segment of the population that needs to be invited, and so included in those conversations. So Mary, I think that's a great thing that you're doing, to be able to think about those activities and really draw people out. Mary, I want to ask, how is that working? Is that working at all for you? And how are you, is Facebook the only thing you're doing, or are you doing other things to reach out to people?
Yeah, the Facebook has been the only thing that I've communicated with. And then, we really didn't get released from COVID, I guess, until March, April, something like that. I can't remember. My first public outing without a mask was our cleanup from our district Facebook page. And so, gardens kind of had to be started in February, March. And so we were still in the house and not able to get together. And so it was a big flop. We did nothing. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep plugging away at it. I started a new job and it's very intense. And so that's taken a lot of my time for the past couple months. I'm just a newbie and a novelist at this, but I do want to be involved and help and support everybody, all my neighbors and myself. So.
And I think, one of the challenges that we have too is, you live in an area where many different languages are spoken. And some of those different languages are first languages. And English is a second language. And that makes it even more difficult, because all of the things that we hear about Facebook usage is, people are only going to predominantly join groups where their language is spoken, where their first language is spoken. And so the difficulty with that is you have some people who maybe, to be nice, will join a group. I'll get a friend request every once in a while. Someone will say, "Hey, Jim, join this group," and I'll join it. But I'm not going to follow it. And particularly if it was in, when high school, I got a C in French my first year, and it went downhill from there. And so, if it's a French speaking group, I'm just not going to participate. And I'll tell you, there's only one thing worse than a French speaking group to someone like me, and that is a French writing group. And Facebook is all about not all about, but pretty much about the written word. And so for people that is not their primary language, it's going to be a very great challenge to do that. And I don't know, maybe one of the things to find out, Mary, is you know which groups are in your neighborhood, which languages are being spoken. One of the things we're doing here at Neighbor to Neighbor is identifying the cultural centers. You know, what are the cultural centers for the Hispanic community? And that is even broken down even further by countries. What are the cultural centers for the Kurdish community? And then we're actually researching those right now. So I don't have any answers for you tonight, but we're researching those. And then the next step for us is to actually go and visit those cultural centers and making those connections. Because one of the things that is really important in cultural work is being willing to be seen in someone else's cultural setting. So it's one thing to welcome someone into the home base where I feel comfortable, but it feels people get the clear message when I show up at a cultural festival. They get the clear message that I'm affirming and that I'm wanting to be supportive of their work. And I know that's not a Facebook thing, but it is a reality for us. Is how do we make those connections with people who don't speak English as a first language? It's by making sure that we are seen in those cultural settings. And thankfully, new Americans are much more forgiving of our ignorance or our inability to speak a language than often we are of them for not being able to speak English. And so for me, it's really important to be out there, at least making the effort and showing up in these spaces and places so that people at least know that I'm affirming and I'm welcoming, and I want them to be a part of our neighborhood.
Oh, that is so, I did not even think about that, but that is an amazing idea. And I would love to get my hands on a list of the cultural centers here in my area. And my grandmother did traveling choir up in Pennsylvania and visited other churches, and we could have a traveling potluck and host it at the different centers one a month.
Yeah.
I'd love that list.
That would be good. Well, we have Kelvin Campson, who is our Vanderbilt Ingram Scholar, is working on that list, and it should be ready in the next few weeks. So once it's ready, I'll be sure and share it with you, Mary.
Thanks so much. That'll be great. Thanks.
Yep. You know, the other thing that I wanted to focus on too, and I don't know whether you've experienced it yet, but certainly because, you know, we are posting into neighborhood groups across the Davidson County, is the hostility that can come from what I think are pretty benign invitations to our events. Even today, when I was noticing, we sent out the invitation to join us in communicating through Facebook and Nextdoor, and some of the responses that we get there, even on something like that, are so hostile. And some of the photographs that we use, people, you know, they're by and large, they're stock photography. Don't tell anybody, but you know, you don't want to, you know, we don't have a lot of photography here. We don't have photographers here, so we have to resort to that. But you know, people are all the time. I'm just amazed at some of the negative comments that are made. about that. And I know Thomas was talking about safety. It is something that is of concern. That you know, when you put yourself out there, you may think, oh, this isn't this isn't anything, you know, that's going to be the real discussion. This isn't going to be anything that should be, you know, something that people would just disagree about. But people can be pretty disagreeable about just about anything, right? You know, they don't like X, Y, Z. And I just want to, one thing that I have had to learn, and it's really helped me. And I'm sure people don't like it that have posted negative things about the post that I've done. It's their issue. It's not my issue. They have issues. Now, I do try very much, when someone makes a comment, I try to treat it as if I try to accept that it's trying to be constructive. If I can find anything constructive in that comment at all, I'll try to learn from it. So I'm not saying to ignore what people say, all right? But there are folks out there that just are making comments to make comments. And, you know, that will destroy, that has such a negative impact on people. And you know, that's what Thomas was coming in about neighborhoods, you know, about the safety of Facebook, right? That there are kids out there that are really getting beat up about their looks, about the way they talk, about whatever it is in their life, to the point where they are desperate and they are, you know, ready, and some do actually kill themselves. We can't allow ourselves to fall into that. We've just got to accept that there are mean people out there. And there are people out there who are don't really care about us. They don't really care about their community. They're angry, and darn it, they're going to make everybody else miserable. And, you know, I do try when I find someone like that to hide or report those comments, because they have an impact on even though an unintended impact on your organization, on your posts. And so I really tried to get rid of those as much as possible. If you're posting into your Facebook group and those comments are coming up, there has to be a plan for how to deal with that. Just the same as there has to be a plan when someone comes to your physical meeting and is hostile and angry and really not deconstructive, instead of helping to construct a better community, right? Neighborhood organizations have been destroyed by people like that. And those folks are typically the ones who will stay on till the very end, making other people miserable. Sometimes they know they're doing it, sometimes they don't. But that is a real problem. And as you are an administrator of a Facebook group, you have to address it. The other thing that I really like along those lines that I'll just point out, I really like when we're able to use a Facebook group and we're able to verify that people live in the neighborhood. The thing I like about a group as opposed to a page is that groups allow for more interaction. They allow people to share and they can create their own posts. And I think that's a marvelous thing. I do think you have to have ground rules, and those ground rules have to be enforced. And I noticed lately that I was seeing some of these hip pages that are coming up, And I've seen one hip page come up, and they have very strong ground rules. Basically, you know, free speech, but you can't insult people. You can't, you know, promote your own business and stuff like that. And someone will go out and create a hip XYZ2, just so they can be mean. Right. And let them do that, but don't let your page become that place where people come to complain. And I think when we talk about Nextdoor, depending on where you're at, some neighborhoods have found their page to be just as bad as a Facebook page can be. And so you really have to be willing and able to monitor that stuff. And you know, it's not a. I noticed someone said about, you know, the liberals own Nextdoor, and they don't allow anything bad to be said. I don't know if you're whether that I don't know what that says for people who are conservative. I would expect though that we all have a stake in making sure that we're respectful of one another and how we say things and how we respond. And so I want to make sure that we don't put this on the liberals, or we don't put this on the conservatives. I have seen hateful things said by both groups. And I have seen some pretty crazy things said from both groups. And so it's not a left or a right thing. It's really about being in the middle, and trying to play that role of being fair to everyone, and finding a way to do that. It's coming up on 7 o'clock. I wanted to stop there and just see what are we missing? What am I saying that's good, bad, ugly? What do I need to talk about?
Well, I believe you said some interesting and constructive things. What I was taught about conservatism years ago is that it's a movement or a way of thinking that actually tries to protect liberty and promote liberty. But in the 20th century and now going into the 21st century, it seems to become a reactionary idea of trying to bring back the good old days and the days of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. And it's taking on a tone that's not reflective of its pedigree of trying to conserve liberty and promote it in such a way that it means what it says. It says what it means within certain limits. But now it's become quite different than what I was led to believe that it was years ago.
Yeah, I kind of think, Thomas, all of the old models for conservatism, liberalism, all of that have just been thrown up in the air, and we're in a moment of huge cultural shift, and those identities have really been blurred, and so we've got to. We're not at a point where we can make those clear statements anymore, and for some of us, that's pretty disturbing. You know, we like our labels. We like to know. We like to know where we are. And the reality is, in today's world, you know, those labels just are being blown away.
Well, I don't think it's so much being blown away; they're being perverted. To me, undergoing an evolution that's not healthy at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't feel healthy, does it?
No, and it's not realistic in some ways to think extreme thoughts in either category. And Facebook and the Nextdoor Digest or whatever it's called are two means out of several or many where people could say mean things and remain anonymous in some instances, so they can't be held accountable for the remarks they make. And it's a sad situation and a depressing one sometimes.
And one of the things that we need to be mindful of as administrators of neighborhood Facebook pages or groups is that it's not necessarily the content of what's being said, but how it's being said that we're really monitoring. And so, if one is presenting a argument, that's one thing. If one is shouting an argument, if one is demanding everyone believe it, those are things that we, as Facebook moderators, really, we can't abide by, no matter who's saying it. We really have got to find a way to be fair. If I'm a conservative, I need to make sure that I'm moderating both the liberal and the conservative. If I'm a liberal, I need to make sure I'm moderating both the liberal and the conservative. I think I said that backwards. But anyways, we have to be an impartial moderator, and that is so very important. Yeah. I think the other thing too that I wonder about sometimes, there's a couple of dangers that I think we need to think about. If you're a neighborhood organization wanting to recruit people, there's a couple really bad things that should never happen. A website that is inactive, has wrong information, and probably hasn't been changed in a year or two. That actually reflects very poorly on the neighborhood organization. So you can have a really effective neighborhood organization doing great things, but if it's not being communicated on your website, then that website just needs to go away. And I really think beyond anything else, beyond Facebook, beyond newsletters, emails, the beginning of a good neighborhood communications plan is a website that people can access. In the same way, though, that's also true about Facebook. If you have a group and the Facebook page is just not active, and maybe there's one post a month or every few months on it. When people go and visit that web or that Facebook page, they are going to assume that the page is pretty much dead. And in many ways, it would be better for you to delete the page than to have it up and showing a group that's not active. And that's a hard thing. But I'll say something else about that too. If you're a neighborhood leader and every time you think about Facebook, you cringe, and yet you're the one responsible for that page, you're putting yourself through too much. And if nobody else in your neighborhood is willing and able to take that over, let it go. You got too many other things to worry about than to try to keep this page moving along, limping along. And if nobody's willing to step up, then it's not valued by your neighborhood. And so let it go. And then when someone comes back and says, well, why don't we have a Facebook page? You can say, well, we did, but no one was willing to take responsibility. Would you like to be responsible for starting the page, restarting the page? You know, don't put yourself in that situation where you're trying to do stuff and it's just giving you a heartache. There's too many things you can be doing. Just too many. So whatever you're good at, do it. And if you're not good at it, don't do it. All of that being said, you need a website. You do need a website. You need a site where anybody can get on at a public library who doesn't have an account with Facebook or Nextdoor and can see XYZ neighborhood has a meeting this Thursday night. You know, and this is another reason why that there are valuable resources on that page for neighbors. You know, like 311 and all the different things like that. Gotta do that. I think that's important. And one of the things that Facebook you can do from time to time is just put a post in that says, hey neighbors, we have a great website that you should visit every once in a while to see what the most recent news is. Here's the link to it, and allow people to pull out onto that. You can do that with your emails. You really want your website to be your neighborhood hub. If your meetings are your hubs, that website's your hub too. So, well, I see we're running down to the last few minutes. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to say or questions that we didn't get to tonight? All right, then I'm going to let everybody go. Next week is what is a safe neighborhood? And that's a pretty basic question, but I think we really need to discuss what neighborhood safety means today. We have a lot of things happening in our neighborhoods. We have a lot of new tools happening in our neighborhoods, the automated license plate readers, the ring phones. So let's next time get together and talk about neighborhood safety and what it means to have a safe neighborhood. All right, well, thanks for being here tonight. As you leave, remember this: great neighborhoods don't happen by accident. It takes you and me and all of us working together to make our neighborhoods safe, healthy, and vibrant places to live. Have a good week, and we'll see you all next Thursday.
Everybody, good night.
Bye-bye.